My name is Christopher Hunt. I'm the CEO of Titan Class. I've been a software developer for a long time. Actually, it worries me sometimes how long it's been. I've seen the advent of the internet, well, certainly in terms of popularizing PCs come around, and handhelds from pilots turning into smartphones, and so it's been a while, but it's been a great ride. And in the course of that time, about 20 years ago, I married my wife, and I seemed to inherit 1/3 of Australia's population, and a large portion of that population were on the land. And so in the course of that 20 years, I've had the opportunity of being on a lot of farms, and I've constantly wondered, how can I apply what I know from a software engineering perspective into this space? So it's been quite a long journey for me. And I would say that it's only in more recent times, from an economics perspective, that it's now become viable to actually bring more technology to agriculture. The other thing I want to sort of say here is that we're at the beginning. This is the start. From an Agtech perspective. I mean, I know there are things going on right now, but it really is, it certainly feels like the beginning for me. So why Agtech together in the first place? Why are we all here? Again, this is a beginning. And my view on that is that we cannot do this alone. None of us can do this alone. As a device manufacturer, you cannot do it alone. As a platform provider, you cannot do it alone. As a software developer, you cannot do it. We need to come together. And we need a place to come together. We need a platform. Maybe we need a few platforms. It reminds me, actually, again, of calling on my experience in computing of a while ago, where we had a few platforms there too, in terms of operating systems. There was a lot of hardware around, and a lot of different platforms, and over time they consolidated. Another interesting aspect of these platforms was that the ones that survived, in particular, the ones that we still see today, have a very strong developer focus. And we're going to bring up this theme a bit today, because I don't think it's actually being talked about enough. So some stats actually from Rabobank are quite interesting that were released, I think, this week. And that is that the number of sensors, the uptake of sensors, sorry, on the farm is actually quite low in general. Now, we know this. It's not that they're completely absent, right? But the uptake is generally low. What we do know, though, is that more farmers are starting to instrument their farm, and more farmers are starting to use that data for better decision making. Again, this all comes from Rabobank, and the last thing that they said was that a significant portion of those farmers are deriving, they're seeing profits from these investments as well. But again, with this opportunity of going out on many farms over the years, one thing I've noticed is that farmers are incredibly innovative, and there's a few in you here today, so I'm sure you're going to agree with me. But it's not for the want of adopting technology. Farmers are adopting technology, but as Kevin highlighted, that when you go to a farm, you see a system to look after the pivots, a system to look after the grain silos, a system to look after water levels, and so forth. And there are multiple systems. And so the data is siloed. And so this is, again, another reason why we need to come together and ignite the gathering of agricultural data by starting to build platforms. I don't think we're going to be the only platform. I'd like us to be the only platform out there in agriculture. There'll be a few. There are a few emerging right now as well. So in terms of what XDP actually is, whoops, Kevin, I need to slip then. What XDP actually is that it is an open and adaptable platform. So again, from a developer perspective in particular, all of the developer touch points are either open source or open. And this is really very, very important. Again, it's building on this observation of history, where the platforms that have succeeded are the ones with this strong developer focus. Developers have choice. They don't have to use your platform at all. They can decide, and they have a lot of influence within an organization as well. XDP is also adaptable. And what we mean by adaptable, and this is a really important point as well, is that today's network topologies, if I can use that word, the types of network that we deal with are not necessarily tomorrow. So today I put it to you that we have terrestrial-based technologies that are perhaps more economic in their usage than satellite right now. But a lot's happening with satellite. Low Earth orbit satellite is certainly developing. And so we're going to see changes. And from a platform point of view, we need to be able to accommodate that. And we can. And not only can we accommodate that, but we can actually have multiple types of network in place and have data blended from multiple sources. So today, again, it could be a terrestrial-based technology that's being used, and I'll drill in a little bit as to what I mean by a terrestrial technology. Tomorrow, though, it could be that plus direct-to-satellite from sensors. There are certainly companies here, Mariota, one to mind, doing direct-to-satellite at the moment. Tag is another. And then it could be all backhaul to low Earth to satellite as well. But we can blend all of these together, and we want to make sure that from the farmer's perspective, the experience is constant. They actually don't really care whether it's delivered by satellite or terrestrially or whatever means that you choose to deliver data. They're not that bothered. Their main concern is that that data is delivered in an economic way, that it makes business sense to adopt that type of sensor. So when we talk about terrestrial technologies today, we are talking, certainly, our focus has been on a category of technology called LPWAN, meaning low-powered wide area network. And quite simply what that means is that the sensors themselves consume very, very little power. The claims, and I think, again, it's probably too early to actually have tested a lot of these claims. But the claims are, a sensor, AA batteries, 2 of them probably last a couple of years. But again, it depends on what the sensor is doing naturally, and how much power, that sensor requires. And wide area network, as in these sensors, these very small sensors, and we have a few on here, that we're going to go through, can easily communicate 10 kilometers with no problem at all. Now, they still require line of sight, roughly. I mean, I've been surprised what these sensors can actually get through. But these are the technologies that we're using today. And another thing that we've noticed as well is that with a lot of farms, where you put the antenna to receive this data is not necessarily at the homestead. It's generally at the highest point of the property. And so you generally also need to provide a link between that tower and the homestead as well. Right? So we've been involved in this, and we're using 802.11, Wi-Fi. Directional Wi-Fi. We concentrate its beam. We can easily get it 5, 6 kilometers, no problems at all. The claims are around 30 odd kilometers. I haven't seen this yet, but the possibilities are certainly there. So we'll talk a little bit more about that with Deltite Station, which we'll drill in a bit more later. So again, things can change in the future. And then the next thing, no, actually I haven't, this is actually intended. Yeah. See, I was building up and now it's kind of ruined, Kevin. You've ruined my presentation. There's actually a stat that I just think is quite shocking. And see, look, right, 0.6%. And this stat is important. I'm not going to assume that anyone knows what that relates to, but that is the number of tech companies out there on the planet focused on agriculture, fishing, and forestry combined. 0.6%. That's from a survey of 64,000 developers 2 years ago. Last year, the Stack Overflow survey, they had an updated survey. Agriculture wasn't even a line item. It's no longer that. It's just not classified. And so while we're seeing a lot of ag going to tech, we're not seeing a lot of tech going to ag. And again, this is an important focus of XDP. It's there to appeal to those developers. And I'm a developer. I understand what it is that we're like. We're not, you know, as money-driven as people may think. We're more driven, actually, by the technology itself. And so if we see that technology is quite interesting, we actually do things for nothing. I mean, you've all heard of open source, right? You know, if there's sufficient interest, then we'll do stuff for nothing. And so what we have to do is make this technology relevant and interesting to the masses of developers out there, but to get tech to come to ag. It's really, really important. And actually, one more thing I wanted to say on that is that what it represents is an imbalance of talent out there. There's such a lot of talent out there in the world that can be harnessed to do more meaningful things than, I can tell you, the majority of developers are actually focused on, which is to create the next database or software development tool or the next social media app, right? There's a lot of this going on. And so we need to direct that talent more strongly. And some key points, again, to this are that from a developer point of view, again, is to recognize that they have choice and to avoid vendor lock-in at all costs. It's really, really critical. We believe that we've taken a leaf out of Google Android's book here a little bit. And with Google Android, it's a completely open platform, certainly of great appeal to developers, and Android itself is the widest adopted platform for smartphones on the planet. And we want to become the widest adopted platform for agriculture on the planet. So again, we're following a lot of similar patterns. But there's one interesting aspect there, other than the developer focus, and that is you need a big brand to help you get there. Now, Android had Google. Android was not started by Google. It was acquired by Google. And similarly, we have Cisco as a brand behind this platform. And that's really important. And again, I think, you know, a distinctive feature of some of the other emerging platforms that we're actually seeing. So this is a tower that we had Mark build, Mark Ritchie, who will be up next. And this is at Delatite Station. I wanted to show this because I want to describe what XDP is to the farmer. As Kevin highlighted, it is something that can operate without being connected to the internet. So what does that actually mean? What we have is a tower with LoRaWAN and antennas on the top, probably about 4 meters high. We should be able to get a range of stretching it probably 35K. You know, we would like to actually test the top of Mount Buller. How far is Mount Buller away? Be about that? Right. So that's when we go down there next, we thought, well, we could go skiing, and at the same time, we could test the range, right? So, so then what we have here is a directional antenna of 802.11. So we have a LoRaWAN receiver, which is just, you know, a box to receive this low-powered wide area network signal. And then we have this directional antenna that, I think that's it over there. That's the top of the stables, where we have another directional antenna receiving that. That's 3 kilometers. It works. It actually worked first time, and of course, Cisco equipment, right? You know. And then we had another hop, another 802.11 Wi-Fi hop to the homestead itself. Oh, I just remembered I've got a prop here as well. So I better get it, because in the homestead, we had one of these. So at the homestead, we had these. in the roof of the homestead, there is a Cisco industrial router model 829. They're called IR829s, very creatively named. This is a compute device as well as being a network device. It lives in the roof of the homestead. That roof gets extremely warm. I would not hazard to guess out how hot it would get up there, but I know when we've worked up there, it gets extremely hot. And it survived the summer at Dollartite with no problems at all. This device just kept going, not a single fault. It stays up. They're fanless. They're built for this. So I think they come out of oil and gas originally and mining, you know. So they're perfect for Australian agriculture. WEF, of course, you know, see, it wouldn't mind me just slamming that down then either, I'm sure. So that's what we have. So again, sensors out in the paddocks, several kilometers away, some of them. I think our furthest one that we checked was something like 10K. We checked once and again had no problems. We can receive data and send data to those sensors. And 3 kilometers Wi-Fi link to the homestead. And then on the 829, that's where XDP lives. That's where the software itself actually lives. And it's plugged into the homestead's local network. So at Dollartite, they actually have the NBN coming in using a microwave dish from memory, and it comes through the IR829, and then it serves the rest of the house. So we serve the rest of the house with broadband plus access to applications. So not only do we gather and store the data here at the edge, but we also provide access to the edge. So you can see that we can operate without the internet. But when we've got the internet, we can also use that as well. We can also blend that in. So for device manufacturers, LoRaWAN, which is the technology that we've chosen as a low-powered wide area network, and when I say chosen, the one we've focused on. Again, we're not tied to it, right? And I think that's an important point. But one of the, if you like, the problems that it hasn't actually solved is what we call device provisioning. So when a device arrives at a farm, will it just work straight away? And LoRaWAN as a technology doesn't make any provision for that. So we've put many man-hours into making that possible, such that when a device is ordered by a farmer and it arrives on the farm, that it will work immediately, that they will be able to visualize its data immediately and be able to start making decisions on that data immediately. And it's no mean feat to actually achieve this. But from a device manufacturer's perspective, we hope that that really appeals to you out there, because we can provide that plug and play experience. And you know, maybe if you're talking about 1 or 2 water tanks or 1 or 2 soil moisture probes, this is not really a big issue. But when you're talking about hundreds of cattle tracking tags, that becomes a real issue. You know, and these devices need to be provisioned with secrets, because all the data gets encrypted, of course. It all gets stored in an encrypted way. And you don't want a farmer having to write a 64-bit hex number into, you know, for each tag, you know, that's arriving on the farm. And we can actually do this by even when the farm is not connected to the internet. So when a device is ordered, the device manufacturer connects to XDP in the cloud, it sends the data it needs to, and then we'll take care of the rest. We'll take care of that data getting to the farm somehow. We can talk more in detail about that one if we get time. For developers, again, I mentioned developers earlier, very strong and important sector, a requirement for a platform to succeed. What we have done is to focus on established technologies, proven technologies. We haven't attempted to reinvent the wheel here, but these technologies are also contemporary. these technologies also have well-established communities, developer communities behind them. This is really, really crucial to the success of the platform itself. And this technology we've called Streambed, hence the slide. And again, open source at the core, open at any other of the touch points from a developer perspective. So again, that developer doesn't feel locked in. I can tell you, from my previous experiences, my previous engagements, before I got involved with Cisco here on this particular project, I worked for a number of Silicon Valley-based companies, and our customers were Apple, they were Tesla, they were HP, they were John Deere, and others, and big names in IoT, big names in general, but big names in IoT. And I can tell you right now that the technologies that we've based ourselves on here are being used by those companies as well. So we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And this is, I think, a really important point to hone. In terms of, there are some innovations here. I think, first of all, as well, the ability to operate independently of the internet, it's not a first. You know, there are plenty out there that can do this, but not enough, let's say. You know, so I would say from certainly an Agtech platform perspective, you will struggle to find other platforms that do not require the internet, that do not require the cloud in some way, shape, or form. I'm not trying to bag the cloud here at all, right? The cloud is very, very useful. But operating at the edge, and let's just define what the edge means as well. Operating at the edge at the farm requires the data being close to where it's consumed. That's a Wikipedia definition. So, you know, it's right. You can't argue with that. So that's one really strong feature. And when you, from a software development perspective, when you start programming that way, when you assume that the internet, the network will fail on you, it makes you treat the software that you develop in a very different way. And the great thing about this is that when you write software for the edge, for the farm, to run on these low-powered devices with very few computing resources, when they run in the cloud, they run extremely well. And the benefit of that, as a business owner, is there's less cost because you're using less resources. You need less machines to actually run these as well. Another aspect, another innovation that we like to look at here with XDP is in terms of how we store data. We actually store data indefinitely on the 829. Originally, we started to think, you know, we should really do some housekeeping and put some thought into how we clean up some of the data here as we go along. And then we did some dimensioning of the data as we do. This is what you do. If you're a good software developer, you dimension the problem and you work out how much storage you need. And we worked it all out, and on a 1 terabyte drive, we can have 300 years worth of data. So we thought, maybe we don't really need to think about the housekeeping at this point. You know, because you know what? If XDP is still going in 300 years' time, then this will be a very valuable, I think, what's being recorded right now. The other interesting aspect of the data is in its ability to be shared, and shared with consent. We operate on the principle that the farmer owns the data, first and foremost. It's not our data, it's the farmer's data. If they consent to share that data with other parties, we will facilitate that. We will make that possible. And we can do this because we're very strong on encryption, we're very strong on what we call identity management. We have a very finely grained approach to how we manage what we call secrets, how we encrypt data. We don't encrypt it at an organization level. We can encrypt it down to the device itself. Every specific device can retain its data in this highly encrypted way. What's nice about this is, for the farmer, what this means is that they can choose to share this data with other farms, or they could choose to share this with the supply chain or aspects of this. with the supply chain. This data can also be blended with other data streams to enrich and to provide more value to the data. You can see here now how there's a bit of an ecosystem that can actually grow around the market of data itself. And actually, we see this as our end game. Certainly, our current focus is about on-farm connectivity because it has to happen. And so that's where we're going to play, and that's where we're going to play strongly. And, you know, it may all seem even a bit hard right now, but you know what? It's going to get easy. Kind of like the internet was back in the 90s. You know, I used to get so many calls from friends and family. Can you fix my dial-up modem thing, you know, because it's not making the right noises and stuff. And this is kind of how it is right now. Getting, you know, getting the on-farm connectivity is the tricky bit. And that's the bit that we're focused on solving right now. But ultimately, this is going to be a game about data itself, and to be able to share that data, again, with consent and securely. These are, in recent times, some of the device manufacturers that we've already started to work with. In a moment, I'm actually going to show you a little bit of XDP in real life. Smart Paddock provide cattle sensors for tracking cattle. They have GPS in them. They have motion sensor. They have a thermometer for temperature. ICC International have been going since the 70s, I think. I don't think they're here today, unfortunately. They've been fabulous. They've loaned us all types of sensors, but they've also got into the low-powered wide area network game recently as well. So we've got a really nice weather monitoring system from them. We also have soil moisture probes and dendrometer bands. I didn't know what a dendrometer band was actually until we received one, but you can measure the girth of a tree because trees grow. We can actually do that, apparently. So, but they have a wealth of sensors. Pear Tree we've just started working with. They're here today, and they're in the data. I would say they're in the data analytics game, providing visualizations around data through dashboards and so forth. LNX are also here today. They provide water or pressure sensors. Is that the correct way of saying it? Where are you, LNX guys? Pressure. You know, any solution any situation focused on water pressure itself. So measuring water levels. We're using them for measuring water levels in water tanks. Agri-Ace electric fence sensors. I'm not sure if Scott's here today, but very, very useful. I mean, who would have thought, you know, the utility of electric fence? You know, I mean, previously you had to go out there and, like, you know, almost touch the fence with your tongue, I think. Yes? Yeah. But no longer. You can actually just see, you can just see if your fence is working. And knowing whether your fence works, you know, it kind of sounds simple, but there's a huge cost that can be had if your fence isn't working properly. So that's very important. And HighQuest Solutions, who are here, the gentleman sitting over there, who now I'm not. I better be careful here, because if I just say you make rain gauges, then that's a bit boring. You know, you do a lot more than that. I know that, but we got together, you know, because of that. And actually, we have a bit of a story about the rain gauge down here. This is the bottom of it. It's quite a nifty little sensor. I'm sure the HighQuest guys will talk about it a lot more later. But just as a bit of an experiment, because they did not have a LoRaWAN version at that time, of course they're going to have as a result of this engagement, I just knocked one up by going to JCar and spending $100. And I'd never done that before, right? So that's the ease at which you can get sensors connected to the network. And it's another important point as well. You know, farmers, again, are very smart. I will not be surprised at all to see farmers, see you lot, go out there and build your own sensors even. You do things that are much more complex than that right now. So it's possible. You can just go to JCar. Okay, got everyone there? Now, this next stage, this gives me a great pleasure. Titan Class, our mission statement is to bring Silicon Valley thinking to Australian agriculture. This is our mission. And we're effectively doing that here, where UNSW got involved through the Innovation Center, which Cisco have established. And I got these guys to integrate these sensors. They're just off-the-shelf sensors, and I wanted to understand. I think number one, I think it's easy to onboard these sensors. Let's see whether it's easy or not. Have to be careful using that word easy, of course, or simple or anything like that. But the second part of it, of course, was to be able to give something back as well. And given this mission, and given what I said earlier about that 0.6% stat, we want to try and bump that stat. We want to nudge it towards 1% or even 2%. It should be possible to do this. And these guys represent that next generation of software developers coming out of university into the industry. So it's a wonderful engagement from that perspective. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Justin now, who's going to come up and just talk about how fabulous it all was. And then I'll come back. Thank you. Justin? Oh, do you want this? Okay.
Hello, can you all hear me? Awesome. Hi everyone. Hope we're having a great afternoon so far. So it's been great hearing Chris speak about the XDB platform, just a mission trying to bring Silicon Valley thinking into Australian agriculture. But with any great platform, it's only as strong as the people behind it, the community supporting the software, and just what value it brings into solving a problem with society. So my name is Justin, and for the past several weeks, I, alongside several other UNSW students, have been working closely with Christopher on the XDP platform. And yep, so a bit about us. The way we got involved with the project was that we were initially involved as part of a student-driven initiative, trying to bring agriculture and tech into the UNSW campus. After long, successful discussions with Cisco, ICS, UNSW State Management, we received their support to build a nice robotic autonomous garden farm on the UNSW campus. So it's like a garden bed. We're going to chuck a farm bot on top and integrate a few sensors with it. So it's been exciting working on that. As part of the partnership as well, we received an offer to work with Chris on the XDP. And as software engineers, we're curious and trying to learn about new things every single time. And we thought this is a great opportunity, so we dived into the world of IoTs, working with Chris. As software engineers, we're curious about all things tech and driven by technical challenges and just finding ways to really solve the problems of the world, trying to make the world a better place. And part of it, a lot of times, as Chris was saying, a lot of that focuses around the next social media platform, the next Facebook, or the next software. And not enough attention is given to agriculture, and it's very easily overlooked. So, but seeing Chris, working with Chris, and just seeing the passion he had, just trying to bring the tech into ag, honestly, it was pretty infectious and it was pretty inspiring. And it's been great working with that. And alongside all the technical challenges that we faced, we could really see the difference we were making in terms of how this can help farmers and make better data decisions. So I'm excited to be standing here today, speaking to you all about what we've been doing. Can we have the next slide? Thank you. So as part of the internship, we worked on trying to integrate these two sensors. Both of these sensors are ICT sensors. They're actually right here on the ground, but I'm afraid I might break it if I pick it up. So on the left here, this here is actually a ICT soil moisture probe and a dendrometer probe connected to the same LoRa gateway. And it's pretty cool. It's like kind of two sensors connected to one thing. And yeah, it measures like soil moisture, stem width, stem temperature. It's pretty cool. On the far right, that's the ITT weather station, and it's like an all-in-one kind of sensor which measures 12 different weather variables. So it's pretty cool because otherwise you'll have like 12 different weather sensors, and it's very finicky to kind of like attach into like to make it working. So that's a pretty cool device. And for farmers, these sensors have huge return on investment value. Firstly, like having these sensors automates a lot of like these data measuring processes. So having to drive to the farm every single day to collect the data. Most importantly, it empowers farmers by allowing them to make data-informed decisions. And by integrating it on the XDP platform, you get a way to standardize all the data of your choosing and having it presented in a nice, appealing, and digestible format. It's really great. So as part of our internship, it's been great. It's been a great learning experience, just dealing with all the technical challenges. As software interns, we had to like learn stuff about LoRaWAN IoTs, software development patterns, distributed systems, edge computing, Git workflow, Docker containerization, just all the buzzwords. But it's been great, like just having that exposure. And once we actually got it working and finally seeing the data on the platform, just getting real-time data, almost like it was alive and breathing, that was like a really like amazing like kind of achievement. Like me personally, I felt pretty proud of myself. I'm pretty sure like Justin there, he was also another intern there. We've been working together, and it was a really great like sense of accomplishment. And I imagine as farmers, just being able to see all that data in one nice digestible format, it's just so easy, and like having that ownership of the data, there's so much value behind that. And yeah, so it's been an amazing journey, and the ag field, it's so easily overlooked by developers, software developers. But the thing is that there's a lot of room to actually innovate inside it. And for such a critical industry, I mean, lunch, breakfast, dinner, you all eat food, and it's just having a way to kind of like work on that industry. It's such a great industry. And I guess as us software developers, technologists, we're always driven by a desire to better, to work with the latest tech, solve problems, and we see a lot of promise in the agricultural field. Like before, we probably wouldn't have, but working with Chris, that's a different story now. It's a really exciting field. And so I guess just to wrap up my section, the XDP is a pretty cool software, and yeah, but with any cool software, with any cool software and platform trying to become the operating system of IoTs, it's only as strong as the community supporting it. What we as interns have kind of worked on is trying to integrate these two sensors onto the platform. And I like to think we've successfully done that, done an okay job. But imagine this, a whole archive of sensors available with the click of a button for any farmer connected to the internet. I think that's pretty powerful. And that makes working with like farm and enables farmers to have access to one of their most important assets, data. So I invite you all today, just join this wonderful community to come on board, help out the XDP platform, and together we can make a difference for Australian farmers and Australian agriculture, and most importantly, for our food. Thank you.
Justin? So you might actually be wondering if this is all real or not. I wanted to just show you that this is actually Teletype station right now with the sensors on it. This is the user interface, if you like, of XDP. It's not an exclusive user interface. You can have many mobile apps associated with XDP, but it's the one that we provide out of the box because, again, like any platform like Android or iOS or macOS, it has to be instantly usable. So we provide enough in there to sort of get started. What this is actually telling us, I'll just quickly point out that the tower is about, I've lost my tower. It would be about here. I think, yeah, it's about there. I'm going to, no, actually it's up here. It's up there. Sorry, Mr. Farmer. It's there. That's 6.3 kilometers away. There. That's an electric fence sensor. This is another one and another one, and that's a water tank. So we're about to put in 5 more water tanks as well. We've also tested cattle tags from Smart Paddock on here as well, and we've tested the range of these cattle sensors across the whole farm really, and we pretty much got coverage nearly almost all of it. You know, there is a C-shaped kind of ridge going around the property. You know, so again, you know, like most RF things don't travel well through hills, right? Sometimes, you know, it bounces off, and sometimes you can get signals through. I do like to say, actually, with LoRaWAN, we did get a signal from, when we first turned it on, we got a signal from a sensor unexpectedly that was still in its box in the kitchen under a table behind glass, behind trees, 3 kilometers away from the tower, right? So it was still penetrating that sort of distance. A couple of other features of this is that, I mean, you can click on these sensors and you can see their history very quickly. We have a dashboard view as well. These dashboards are fully customizable by the farmer. There's a lot of flexibility in there. And then the last aspect to it that I want to just quickly show you here are actually the number of sensors now available in our App Store. So Justin mentioned our App Store earlier, and I think we have 20-odd different types of sensor currently available. One thing Justin didn't mention is, so I'll mention it for him, is that we estimate about max half a day to onboard a new type of sensor. That's just taking any particular sensor out there off the market for LoRaWAN and then onboarding it with the platform itself. So what we'd really like for you to do today before you leave is to complete these forms that we've left on every chair, you know, and you know, let's keep working together on this. It'd be really valuable for us if you could do that. But as Steve Jobs always really liked to do, so I'm going to pretend now to be Steve Jobs. There's just one more thing, and that is that our target is to get 1% of Australian farms on this platform. Now, I'm not going to put a time frame to that. I do actually have a time frame in mind, but I'm not going to get committed to it, right, as any normal developer behaves. But that's what we're going to achieve. That's about 833 farms according to the Australian Bureau of Stats. But we can't do this alone. We need you to do this. So just as Facebook reinvented the media platform, as PayPal reinvented the payments platform, Spotify reinvented music, together we can reinvent farming through this platform as well. So thank you.